Welcome to Make Today Count, your 20 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host Ross Dean, and each episode I chat to thought leaders, influencers and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go that extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them, powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Okay, hi guys, and welcome back to Make Today Count. And today we've got a special guest in Gerard Francis. How are you doing, Gerard?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. We were just speaking offline about how it's a little bit different circumstances for us both as we kind of settle into work at home with family and everything. But really excited about to get you on the podcast today. Reason for that being is that for a lot of the listeners, they maybe sort of have their own businesses or setting up their businesses, and we kind of provide sort of tips and bits and pieces for those guys. But from getting some feedback to a lot of our listeners as well, they are kind of working in employment, navigating their way through the job. So it was really important that we kind of had a conversation, I think, today, which is something that's really important to kind of go through. But before we kind of head into that conversation, I wonder if you can give the guys a little bit of background about, where you came from and your sort of journey up until this point.
Sure. So I was fortunate enough when I left college to have my brother help me find a job.
Okay.
I remember it really well, actually. So, I mean, I didn't really have too much direction when I left college. All my brothers and sisters went to uni. My brother prepared me for a job in a call centre in Ipswich. And he said to me, I'll buy you a suit for the interview. He helped me do all the prep. He said, if you get the job, the suit's yours. You don't have to pay it back. If you don't get it, then you're going to owe me the money. Now he got a recommend a friend bonus for that as well. But he was challenging me to go out and get the job. And he helped me. He sat with me. And, people don't get that support. So that was kind of my first sort of experience getting into employment. And then I went and worked for a training company for 5 years. Became like an area manager for them. Did lots of work with schools and colleges and going and delivering talks on further education routes other than university, so apprenticeships, lots of careers advice, guidance and support to young people. And then did a little bit of sort of temporary recruitment with a healthcare company for a couple of years before deciding, I want to do something for myself. And I always thought I didn't want to get into recruitment. I never wanted to be in recruitment. And I thought, well, if that's how I feel about it, and I know that's how a lot of people feel about it because of the cutthroat nature of the industry, then actually surely I could be the one bringing a bit of, change to it. And so we set up Lighthouse Personnel 2 years ago, myself and the wife. There's sort of 5 of us in the business now. And we set the business up to really try and help people find the right thing long term, and to use that sort of skill set and experience that I've had in actually, giving back to people as well. So it is predominantly recruitment, but we do a lot of sort of video blogging on how to find the right job. We do some free talks with schools. At the moment, during all this, I'm doing some free CV writing for people and reviews, just to, really help people get the right thing, as opposed to just landing a job or getting a fee. It's a bit more personal than that for us.
Yeah, I love that story from what you said about your brother, and that him kind of giving you that accountability to do it. And it's such, I know from different things in my own life where that's such a really powerful tool, isn't it? To just have that sort of social accountability of doing that. So you got the suit in the end then?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So it was, it's funny though, because I think a lot of people don't get, or when, as a parent now, it's difficult to know what I'm going to tell my children and what advice to give. And there is stuff out there to find the advice, but it's knowing where to look. And I think, there are still lots of gaps where young people and people further on in their career don't know where to look or how to make the right change, or unaware of how the best ways are to approach that. So that's what we like doing is sharing that information out as best as possible, really.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about, some of the work that you're doing at the moment is going out to schools, which I think is a really amazing thing that you're doing, because I
Yeah.
think exactly like you say, you know, we learn all these different things in schools, but some of these kind of key life skill bits and pieces we
Yeah.
just don't do because they're not in the curriculum, I guess.
Yeah.
So what's the benefit that you've seen from the children and the young people from kind of working with them in those sort of environments?
So the things that we do, so we do a 15-minute assembly, we do a
Yeah.
40-minute assembly, we'll do a workshop.
Mm.
The best thing, I mean, we can't really see too much from how the assemblies do because obviously we
Yeah.
don't have that one-to-one contact, but we've been asked back several times. So that shows that they're happy with it.
Yeah.
But the workshop was great. I mean, we sat down and we asked kids to think of keywords they should have in their CV for their ideal job, some questions that they could ask an employer at the end of an interview. And I mean, I was really surprised actually. These were sort of 17, 18-year-old students, sort of year 1 or 2 at college.
Yeah.
But I was expecting, that age for me, I wouldn't have been paying the attention they were. And they were really engaging and giving back and asking us questions of how would I approach this interview question? How would I approach that? And what do you think if I asked this question? And it was really good to see. And then we would give out our business cards, and we've had a number of them come back and email us for CV reviews and stuff like that. So, the messages are clearly sinking in. The subscribers, we've only got a few on our YouTube channel, but the views are going up significantly across our platforms. And that shows that, hopefully people are liking the messages we're giving to help them, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I want to speak to you about today, Gerard, was about kind of to give some actionable tools for people in that situation where maybe they're in work at the moment, but maybe there's something that's kind of been niggling at them for a while. Maybe there's a certain type of role or something that maybe they've been always meaning to kind of get round to applying to, or kind of looking at. I think it happens for a lot of people. I know certainly in my own experience. Left sixth form, sort of stumbled into a job, didn't really know what I wanted to do at that time. I think it's similar to the story that you were saying before. And then just kind of life takes you along that road without that much control around, what you're putting on it. Why do you think sometimes we kind of put off this stuff about going for the things that we really love, or these kind of dream roles that we want to do?
So, I mean, a lot of the time with sort of more sort of dream roles, I mean, there's usually a higher barrier to entry, isn't there? So a dream job would likely require further education, study, and it's the financial insecurity and stuff like that. But in general, I think as well, where a lot of people are at is they see a job and they think, oh, that looks really good.
Yeah.
And they dismiss it for one of two reasons. One is because they don't think they're strong enough, or they're gonna, that fear of rejection. And the other could be that they think that they haven't got the time to put the effort into actually going for it. The tailoring the CV, the preparing for the interview. So it's a difficult balance, but I mean, it can be. I mean, obviously, we all know if you get that role, it can change your life. So it's it's worth the time. But I think they're the two main reasons, really, is the time spending on it, and the potentially the fear of rejection tends to be a one that we've seen as well.
Yeah, and through a lot of the conversations I've had with people through feedback from listeners and that kind of stuff, for a lot of people, what I think the feedback I've had is that just life goes on and time passes, and they just I think for what I've seen is that people kind of have milestones, maybe with their age or that kind of stuff. So maybe they hit 20, they hit 30, they hit 40, and in my experience in those conversations, it's that people look at those times and think, where am I at the moment? Where do I want to be? And maybe they look at, how is this working for me at the moment? Is it serving me in the way that I want to? And I think that can sometimes be the catalyst for people to kind of jump into action for some of this stuff. And obviously, like you say, the people have got commitments, so security is a big thing. Maybe they've got children and mortgages and that kind of thing. And I think if we go back a generation to maybe our parents' age, it was always talked about around kind of job security, job for life, that kind of thing. And I'm guessing you see now that people are kind of more happy and more willing to kind of jump from job to job and maybe have positions for a shorter amount of time than it was in the past.
They are, and I think I in a lot of thoughts, I do think that's not necessarily a good thing. I think You want to have longer stability and loyalty. And my challenge on that is that I actually think, and this is, throwing way off piece, but I'm going to bring it back in, is that CVs don't necessarily work. For every single job out there that I can think of, you require a CV, but every single job is different and requires different skill sets. So why are we all forced to write a CV when we could be a creative individual and writing a CV that fits a certain format? Or, we're a hands-on individual, we're having to write a CV when we, and also interviews are quite a man-made, very man-made process. You don't ever have any kind of meeting. I mean, meeting a new client for the first time, it's not in the format of an interview. And I think there's lots of other ways that you can get the best out of people. And I think that, it can be quite a process, instead of a very human thing as well, which I think is, can be detrimental for both the client and the candidate. And I think if we were to look at the ways of actually finding the right person, other than just looking at, yes, background is very important, but then we would see, people having longer term careers, and staying in the right place. And I think that a lot of that is also down to expectation management. From a candidate and a client perspective, or an employer perspective, telling a candidate exactly what to expect, giving them realistic timeframes for progression. And from a candidate perspective, I think the statistics are around about 70% of people lie on a CV, or you're making false promises there to an employer that they will then look at further down the line. So I just think expectation management, honestly, is so important in this process to get it right. And that in turn would breed longer term loyalty, basically.
I think we've got so many more tools now than we had, in the past, available to us. And like you mentioned there about CVs, CV was the norm. It's something that you knew you had to create if you wanted to look for a new job. And I remember back to when I was younger, there was a certain format that everyone kind of used. And but now, like you say, with I guess the shift in technology and the ways that we can kind of present ourselves in so many different ways, we can really get creative around some of this stuff. And
I think that's important. I think it's unique. It's a good thing to do, to look at.
Yeah. And I think as well, we all have our kind of strengths in different areas, and what better way to kind of show those is through some of these kind of creative ways that we can kind of put ourselves across. Because I guess not everyone has strong skill sets in maybe putting things down on paper. So maybe the use of video or something like that could be a better format. I think for me, what I wanted this conversation to be, Gerard, was that, maybe if someone was listening to this now and they're in a job and they like what they're doing, but maybe they want a new kind of chapter in their life, in their working life, they want a new kind of challenge. I want to give us some actionable tips. And so what I'd love to do is kind of, if we could go through kind of the process, I guess, and at each stop of the way, we can kind of give some strategies and bits and pieces around that. So I guess, from the start, we need to kind of plan some of this stuff. So, we've got someone that kind of wants a new challenge, but what kind of things should they be getting their house in order if they want to go on that journey of kind of looking for some new work?
So it is, personally, I think it's going to take time. And it's not something you shouldn't be looking for a click apply option on a job. You can use that format, but that's not going to be what lands you the perfect opportunity. And a new job you're going to be spending a lot of time doing it. So you want to get it right. So you want to put time aside to do it. Some people say looking for a job can be a full-time job, and if you do it properly, it can be. Which if you're already in a job, it's quite difficult. But putting some time aside is really important. There's obviously help out there that you can get, but the first steps I'd take is be 100% getting things like your LinkedIn and your CV in order. There's some simple steps which I'm sure we'll probably talk about on this with your CV and things, but CV and LinkedIn definitely need to be in order. You need to be spick and span, really.
Yeah, and I know we spoke about CVs before. Even if later down the line we're thinking about other creative ways, is it still a good idea to get kind of like a solid one down on paper?
So, sorry, excuse me. I think, with a CV, you want to get a base CV that you tailor for each job.
Mm.
So, a personal profile that says who you are, what you're looking for, and why you're looking, and putting in a bit of personality in there as well. I mean, there's so many different layouts you can use. You can go on Microsoft Word, and it actually has different templates. If you search for resume, and you can literally pull off 5 or 6 that look creative, are easy to type in information, and you can get a base level CV down. I mean, in 15 minutes to 30 minutes if you want to. But it's then having something that is a base that you can then tailor to each job you're going for.
And I'm guessing it's probably quite an eye-opener when you kind of sit down and take a step back, because I guess for a lot of people, they maybe haven't gone through this process for years, maybe if they've been in a role previously. It's probably quite interesting to look back and kind of what I have actually achieved from, the last role. And and is it a case like anything, you mentioned there about creating a CV for different roles. Is it a case in which we should be kind of tailoring the way in which we write that CV dependent on the role that we're going to?
Yeah. So, we see CVs that are as much as 14 pages long sometimes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at, Elon Musk, his is a page. I think Mark Zuckerberg's, you can get on a page. There's, you just go on Google and search them, and you can see these people's CVs 1 page long, 1 or 2 pages long. 2 pages is realistic, and it's easy to do. But people will just literally go back and just add their new job on their CV. And I think you need to spend a bit more time on it than that.
Yeah.
Refreshing it. But it's a simple way of doing this is to look at a job description or person specification and look at what duties are required and what sort of person they're looking for, and think of examples when you've done that in your previous duties, and then slotting those into your CV. And any that are completely irrelevant, you don't need to have long lists of irrelevant duties, because the hiring manager wants to know you're suitable for this job.
Yeah.
And you will have other experiences that are worth talking about and are worth having in there, but you want to make sure you're checking whether or not they're relevant or not, or showcasing some of your other skills. But I mean, we do see really, really long lists, for each job, and it doesn't look like it's tailored. It's hard to find the information, and a hiring manager on average will look at a CV for 7 seconds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So you have got to have something that looks good, where information is easy to find, and that it's clear as to why you're applying for the role. Because if that's not clear, then they'll think you've done it as a click apply option.
Yeah. And I guess it's getting that balance as well, isn't it? Because I guess, you might sit down and do a CV, you might have kind of like a brain dump, get everything onto the paper and think that, prospective, employer wants to know all this stuff. But like you say, it's maybe when you're doing the, you may be looking into the company. Yeah, looking into the company, seeing what kind of tone they have to what they do. And kind of working around that. You mentioned LinkedIn as well as something that's hugely beneficial these days. Do you see LinkedIn as kind of equally as important as getting like CVs and things in order as well?
I think it's different, because if you have a CV but you don't have a LinkedIn, you may be missing opportunities, because there's a lot on LinkedIn. Yeah. So they are as important as each other, and they, you could have one or the other, but you will miss out on certain things by having one or the other. I mean, LinkedIn, I mean, you see posts on there nowadays of a college student who's just left college. Hi, I'm looking for a job. It's got 2,000 likes, 500 shares, and you see a comment on there that says, "Yeah, I've just landed my job. Thank you all for your help." And you're like, wow. I mean, it's so powerful. People want to help on there. You can literally engage with line managers, engage with companies. You can find out who works for them and see if they're like-minded people with backgrounds, and research if you really want to be a part of that culture. It's really important. And having a profile that again is tailored to your skills and experience, and if you're looking for a job, is tailored, relevant to the job you're looking for, then it will really help. I mean, you mentioned about the sort of brain dump, and I think you can do that on your base layer CV and your base layer LinkedIn profile, But then when you know what you're looking for specifically,
Yeah.
take out the stuff that isn't, and
Yeah.
keep that to one side, because you're going to want that information further on down the road,
Yeah.
and it might be more relevant for something else. But when you're tailoring it to a role, cut it down and choose the relevant stuff, I think is really important.
Mm. And I'm guessing that, LinkedIn is something that probably employees are using as a tool to kind of have a look into, maybe if they've got a CV, maybe they want more information, they want to see what your presence is online. I guess
Yeah.
they're looking in that way as well from their point of view.
Definitely. I mean, every candidate we recruit for, we have, we do a social media check of
Yeah.
LinkedIn. We even look at things like Facebook, because we want to
Mm.
see, the people we're going to be representing.
Of course.
And hiring managers will do the same thing. And LinkedIn is one that they'll want to see a professional, professional profile, professional activity. And jobs will find you before you've even had to start looking on there. I mean, literally people will get in contact with you without you've even, before you're even looking. So it's been open to that, really.
Yeah, so just as a side note there for people listening, just make sure you just revisit your social media profiles and just make sure, be careful around what you're posting and all that good stuff.
Definitely.
Around there too. Networking, I guess, is another thing that we could kind of touch upon. And I guess for me, networking falls into two things. It's kind of like the traditional kind of networking, getting out and meeting people. But I guess there's also, we all have our own, what we call networks within our own lives, be it kind of people we're working with at the moment, people we've worked with in the past. I'm guessing that it's good to also, if you know people that are maybe in that profession, or that you've met at different events before, to kind of reach out to them and just sort of get the feelers out.
Definitely. I mean, one thing, again, statistics, people who are recommended to a company, who have gone in via word of mouth are something like 50% more likely to stay long term in the role. It really does breed loyalty. And from a job seeker perspective, that means if you're asking the questions, you're going to get information firsthand. So you're going to know if that's a company you want to work for. So research, you can ask questions. Do the team go out much together if that's what you're looking for? On weekends, what are the actual benefits? Would I be working late? Often, all of the sort of nitty gritty stuff you can really find out. But people will. I mean, I think when I've hired in previous job roles before, if someone said to me, "Oh, my friend or my old colleague's looking, they're really good," it's the first person you want to see. Trying to find, identifying companies you want to work for, and then asking your network, could be something that works out long term for you. It really, really could be.
I guess it's like anything as well. People just love personal recommendation as well, don't they?
Definitely.
If you're going to, if you want to contract a builder or another service, we always want to find people that have worked with that person or that company, because we value their opinion. Especially if there's people that we like and respect. So that's a really great point as well. Once we're in that position where we kind of know the sort of the role we want to do, but maybe we're then looking at that step for what opportunities are there in that sector. Is it still kind of the knee-jerk thing to just go online first? Is that kind of the place to go and look for opportunities, or is it kind of a mix of different things?
So, I mean, as we sort of mentioned, it can be a full-time job, and I mean, it's good to be precise if you can. It's good to really, to paint a picture. First of all, think about what you're looking for. Is it, do you want to be outside? Do you want to be in an office? Do you want to be practical? Do you want to be, at a computer? What sort of people do you want to surround yourself with? What sort of company values do you want to work with? And knuckle that down. Once you know that, you know what you're looking for, and then you know where to look. And that could be through recommendations. It can be just going on the job boards. It can be LinkedIn. But I mean, I always really recommend, looking at the people in the company. It's so true that you're hiring, you're interviewing your boss as well, because, that person is going to be, they're going to be the person vouching for you. You need to know that they're going to be, someone you can work with and work for. We ask as a recruitment business people, what is the picture you've painted in your mind of where you see yourself next? What's the values of the company? What are the people around you like? What's your day-to-day duties? Because quite often people say, I didn't like the job description, but that is such a small percentage of the job.
Yeah.
And so you want to think about those things, because if you do just go online when you're searching, you're just going to read it on face value. And you need to then look into the company, to find out, is there more to this job? Or is it just this base level? Because sometimes, well, a lot of the time, it will be more than that base level, and the company could be absolutely spot on for you. And some companies will mold jobs to people's skill set. In fact, a lot will these days, from my experience. And I think, you want to be open to that. So if you are looking online, yes, that's what most people will do. And LinkedIn, really good. Company websites, following through to actually going on company websites and looking at their careers pages. But then, as I say, looking further into the values of the business and finding out a little bit more if you can, will really help you to make sure that it's not just the right job, but the right company, the right people you're surrounding yourself with.
I think that's such a great point, that we can just go to a website, look at a job description and just think that's not for us. But like you say, you don't know who's written that job description. It might not be a true representation. And I think exactly what you said, you need to kind of get a 360 perspective of that company by looking at their social media, looking at the website, all that kind of stuff. And I'm guessing as well, there's no harm sometimes in maybe if sometimes we just know there's a company that we want to work for, but maybe we haven't seen opportunities. I guess there's no harm in putting something together to kind of proactively approach that company and say, look, this is my position. Is that a good kind of...
I think it's the best. I think it's one of the best ways of doing things. I think if you can really pinpoint and identify, a business with a company culture and a sector that you really want to do, then your approach, you've asked one of the staff, I've seen your company lots, what's it like to work for them? And then you're saying, is there any opportunities coming up? Could you forward my CV onto the hiring manager? Or who is the hiring manager? Can I send them my CV? At least, how flattering would that be as a hiring manager to receive that CV from someone who's gone to that effort because they really want to work for your company, and I think if you can be that person and find the company that's spot on, or somewhere where you've really, heard about, it's just going to be spot on for you. Go into that effort. I think it really helps you to stand out. So yeah. I mean, I think that's spot on and definitely well worth doing.
And I think the great thing about the time we live in now is that the barrier entry is lower, in that these key people in organizations have their own LinkedIn accounts, have their own social media accounts. So it's never been a better time to be able to get in touch with someone. It's not like you've got to phone up and get past a receptionist or something like that. There's so many ways you can directly get into contact with people. And like you say, if you can put some thought, some creativity around some of this stuff, and because you're not responding, I guess, to an advert, there's a free rein around how you present yourself. So it could be
definitely.
It could be a video message. It could be, something like that.
Someone put a shoe box with a shoe in, and they said, "I'm just trying to get a foot in the door. Can I send you my CV?" And they were hired. So I love things like that. Being a bit different, being a bit bold. It's definitely it will help.
And equally, if you've done your homework, you identify maybe what the values are around that company or things they're passionate about. You can really tailor your approach to,
definitely
how to get into the door with that. That's some really good. Speaking about job descriptions, and so maybe if we responded to something that we've seen, one of the things I always remember when I was sort of looking at job descriptions in the past as a younger person growing up was around kind of desirable skills and these sort of things. Is it a case of these things are definites for people, or are they kind of things that it's kind of like a filtering, so they want a certain caliber of person come through? How does it kind of work with these?
Different businesses will have different approaches. Some will be very, very thorough. But it tends to be less often than not these days. They want to see a bit of initiative. So, some will even forget what desirable skills they've even put on the job description. They'll literally be looking for something that stands out to them, something that meets their values. And I think you've got to think a little bit outside the box with this when you're tailoring your CV. I mean, I was speaking to, funny enough, my cousin's son, so sort of nephew. He asked me to have a look at his CV. He's finishing school. He wants to get some work, over the summer and, when he's at college. And I haven't got any work experience. I was like, what about other achievements have you got?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, oh, I don't really know. I haven't really. So I sent him an email, said to think about it, and he sent me back all these things he had done at school, like he had been involved in a public speaking competition. He had done an exam for a maths award. He had done all these other things that he just hadn't thought about. People with more experience do charity work, host events, volunteer themselves at work for something, or will arrange a team night out, or all these other things that people just don't think about when they're putting their CV together, that may actually tick a lot of those boxes for desirable skills in a left field kind of way. So I mean, if you haven't got it, don't make it up, but think outside the box when you are putting it together, because it will show you've gone that extra, you've done that extra bit of work to show how keen you are in the role. So I think it's important to take them on board, but not to take them word for word. And where you can, think outside the box, come up with some other things that aren't just, oh yes, I spoke to this client and did this. Think of things where you've really added value, which can be different to just basically what you do in your day job.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and that sometimes we just look at something at face value and think, "Oh no, I can't do that," and we dismiss it too quickly. But as you say, taking a step back, looking at what have I achieved in the past, and how are those skills transferable in some of those ways that I can kind of really make an impact on this role.
Definitely.
It's and I'm guessing with if you feel that you don't fit exactly the job on the paper, but you've just got this feeling that you do kick. When I was younger, it's just you got nothing to lose, have you? I guess
No.
with some of these things. And do people still employees offer like informal chats around applications as well? Is that something that still happens? I remember in my past in jobs and that kind of thing. Can you still, contact someone and talk about the role informally?
So they don't openly encourage it, but I think if you're someone like we're talking about here who hasn't got the right, necessarily hasn't got the right experiences, but has thought outside the box and has shown a real desire to want to get in there, if you could get in contact with the company and say, look, I've seen you on LinkedIn, you share this, and this, and I love it. I really like your products and services. Your customer reviews are fantastic. I know someone that works there and I've contacted them and I really want to work for you. These are my experiences which aren't relevant to the role, but as a person, I would be extremely willing to learn X, Y, and Z, or I've done X, Y, and Z in my personal job. Would someone have a chat with me? You're showing you've ticked all the right boxes. As a hiring manager, if that was me, I'd be thinking, this person really wants to work with me. I can work with them. If they want to work for us that badly, they're going to do everything they can to make it. And I want someone with that values and drive and that wants to do this for us, because they're going to be more effective than someone that goes, oh, look, I've got 25 years experience doing this, or 5 years experience doing this. I know what I'm doing. Give me the job. If someone's got that desire, that's the key thing that you want when hiring you want someone that wants to do it. That is yes, you've got to have someone that can do it, but if someone really wants to do it, the majority of the time they will learn. And a lot of hiring managers are seeing that these days, and are willing to take outside applications. But if you're going to do it, you've got to, as I say, show that you've done relevant things, your research, you've looked at their marketing campaigns or their customer reviews, or you've spoken to people in the business, you've done your homework. If you're going to go down that route, you've got to have done your homework and think of other things you've done that aren't necessarily just work-based.
Yeah, I think that's something that we undervalue about ourselves sometimes, around sort of drive and passion. Even though we kind of look at a job description, you think, oh, we haven't got specific things. We undervalue the fact that we're going out of our way to get evidence, to do research, and all this type of stuff. And I'm guessing from an employer's point of view, as you mentioned, if they've got someone that's amazing on paper, but when you meet them, they sort of can't be bothered to be there. Whereby someone that's super proactive, they've spoken to you before putting their application in, they've talked about things that, like you say, that they've maybe shared on LinkedIn and all this kind of stuff. That in itself is so appealing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That desire. And even if you haven't got a job there and then, you're going to keep them on file. You're going to get back in touch with that person, definitely.
And even that conversation may be, right, I'm not in a position at the moment, I maybe need this skill set and this skill set. Right, I've touched base with you, I found out what I definitely need, I will now go away and get those skills,
Yeah.
and then we can reconvene. I think that shows so much more promise than some of these other approaches and
Yeah.
with some of these things.
Yeah.
Let's just say we've moved it along a little bit, and now we've been called to, I guess, maybe a formal interview.
Hmm.
Now I'm guessing for now, depending on location and that kind of stuff, that can happen in person. Sometimes I'm guessing that happens via video chat and those sort of things now.
Yeah. Via phone as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of a good kind of general tips that you can give people around kind of approaching an interview? So we've got one lined up. What sort of things should we be thinking about to kind of best prepare ourselves?
So, I mean, prepare is 100% the most important thing. Preparation. You know, uh, so many people when they do company research will go on the company about us page and spurt back the first line, and it's almost as an interviewer you think, yeah, okay, cool, they've ticked that box, but
Mm,
then you get a good candidate come through who says, oh, do you know what? I researched the person who was doing this job before, and I've seen that they work there and there, and I used to work for the same company, so I could see how I'd have relevant skills. Or I researched your recent marketing campaign and have noticed you're looking to work with clients like this. Or I've researched some customer reviews and your customers say this about you. Going that step further in your preparation,
mm,
thinking about what questions you're going to ask them, not just what progression opportunities or what's the package involved, but things really about the future of the business. What's your 5-year plan? Are you looking at growing in further? What's great about working for this company? What's your culture like? What are your people like? Really getting into the day to day of it to demonstrate your interest in through your preparation. And the other thing I would say is the honesty thing. You want this to be right for you long term. You want it, and yes, you want to get the role, but they will really appreciate honesty. And if you don't know something, it's preparing yourself to not be afraid to front that and to say, look, no, either can we come back to that question later in the interview, or unfortunately, I don't think I have that experience, but I would be willing to learn, and I have done X, Y, and Z in the past.
mm.
That would help me to do that. So it's focusing on the honesty thing, and it's really all around your preparation. Is going to be the most important thing, because if you prepare for an interview properly, it will make it flow so much nicer. It'll put your mind at rest, all the rest of it. So I really think preparation is key.
I think that's such a good tip, and that sometimes we think in interviews as a one-way conversation whereby you will be asked questions, you will
Mm.
answer those questions, and that's it. But like you say, if you can view it more as a conversation where you can add value at different times, you can show that you've
Yeah,
researched all these different things. That in itself is really encouraging to see from an employer's point of view, isn't it? That you're kind of taking that approach. You're not just kind of
yeah.
sitting back and having the questions fired at you.
Best interviews are conversations, definitely
Yeah.
two-way street. It's you don't want it to get to the end of the interview, and that's the first time you've asked questions. Ask questions as you go, but
Mm.
definitely have some at the end as well.
And I'm guessing from when you work with people, maybe there's people that have not been to an interview for a number of years,
Hmm.
because they've been in a role for some time. Um,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, there's a lot of kind of preconceptions, a lot of anxiety that can come out in these sort of
Yep.
situations. What kind of advice would you give someone that's really kind of dreading being in that kind of environment?
I know I'm banging the same drum, but again, it's all about preparation,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the situation for if you're feeling anxious about it, disorganization or fail, failing to preparing to
mm,
fail, and all that.
yeah,
It's going to make things harder for you. And if you prepare, you're going to feel more at ease. So don't want to be rushing. Think about research your route, research how you're going to get there.
yeah,
Arrive with plenty of time, and then go find somewhere else to sit before you arrive 10 minutes early. Do
yeah,
the basics. Sleep well if you can. Have a good bit of food at relevant time before the interview, so you're not feeling bloated, or you've not just eaten, but you feel comfortable. You've had a drink, you've been to the toilet. That sort of the basic human needs are
yeah,
all met. That's going to really help. And if you've gone to the preparation of as I said, researching the company, the interviewer, you've looked at the job description, you've seen where your experiences meet those, and you can come up with examples and reel them off. talking to someone when you prepare, asking someone to ask you some
Yeah.
potential interview questions,
Yeah.
so that it's going to help ease that anxiety. And also, the interviewer is going to be nervous as well.
Yeah.
And I think, if you can go in and try and switch your focus to a conversation, than thinking someone's going to grill you, because they're not. They're going to want to know that you're right. And you know what, as well, it's something that's always refreshing, is to know that if they are going to grill you and make you feel uncomfortable in an interview, then my question would be, do you think the job's going to be right for yourself?
Yeah, that's a really great point. Yeah.
If so, therefore, in terms of peace of mind, if it's going to go well, it's going to be right for you, and if it's not, then it's probably not going to be right anyway.
I think that's a really great point. And also, I think interviews are an opportunity, like you say, to find out, is this job a good fit for me? Not just, am I a good fit for that company? As well. So like you say, there's loads of other kind of little things that you'll pick up on in that interview. So if someone is, like you say, making it a little bit of a harder time than most, maybe you need to kind of rethink. Is this a good environment?
Is it right for you?
Yeah,
people
definitely.
forget that all the time, and I say it I say it to people. This isn't just about you being right for the role and trying to land it. It's about it being right for you.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feel right, or something doesn't sit right, or you're not comfortable, then is it really right for you?
Yeah. How about when we're looking at kind of what to wear for an interview? Because in the past has always been you need to wear suit and tie, all that kind of stuff. I'm guessing again it's about research and looking at maybe what the company ethos is around some of this stuff. But should we still have that kind of really smart approach to make that first impression?
So, we have clients that say we do not want people turning up in a suit. We have people saying, look, this is a formal interview. So that's from our client's perspective. But when you're going for an interview and you're unsure, first of all, do your research. Can you find any videos of their, or photos on their social media channels of what they, like because that might be the difference between wearing a smart shirt and a blazer to wearing a full suit. Now, as from a male perspective, or professional or smart casual, for example. But if you're not sure, don't be afraid to phone up and ask if you're on the fence with it. If you're still not sure, I would 100% recommend going with smart professional. I would still go with a suit, unless you feel much more comfortable going with something still very smart. I think it's got to be the go-to. We challenge ourselves on this question all the time in the office. We say, what do you think they should wear? We'll then ask the client. But if we haven't had that information and the client hasn't given it out or whatever, or we can't get hold of them, we usually recommend, if you're really unsure, you'll feel much more suitable knowing that you've overdressed than if you've underdressed. But you should be able to find that information out.
Yeah, I think, like you said, there's nothing worse than feeling that you're underdressed in a circumstance. So if you lean on, and I think also sometimes that brings out more confidence in you as well. Sometimes if you, I know in my experience, when I want a suit or something like that, it gives you a bit of an air of, a bit more confidence to what you're doing as well.
And people don't think as well. With the benefits of LinkedIn again is you could even message a different employee. You don't have to message the hiring manager. Hi, I've got an interview coming up. I'm just looking at dress code. I've noticed you're a bit more casual there. But I was thinking of going with a suit. Do you mind helping me out? People won't mind telling you that. It can be an icebreaker as well. I asked so and so what to wear for the interview. It's again thinking a little bit outside the box, but asking the question doesn't matter. I would ask the question 100%. And then if you're unsure, but you shouldn't be at that point. If you're unsure, I think always go with a safe bet, in my opinion.
Yeah, and talking about social proof again, what better way, if you've approached a different colleague at that business and asked them, and then after you've come in for an interview, the manager's talking to that person. Oh, he contacted me online and asked me about what better recommendation against just bolstering that profile of you, isn't it? It's
100%. And it will make you stand out. They'll remember you. You've done something different.
Yeah, definitely. Tests sometimes come up in interviews, depending on the role. Again, tips around that? Is it just kind of like make sure you've read everything that because I'm guessing they'll send through kind of like an outline of what you'll be doing normally.
So, I mean, sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But I mean,
Okay.
tests can be anything. They can be, they could be literally, if you're going for an accountancy job, it can be a theoretical test where you're answering, questions. So it's got to be relevant to the job. So we're going to try and generalize here. I mean, it could also be, presentation, or it could
True.
be, a scenario-based test. Or could you write a piece of content for us for that marketing job you're going for? I think with anything like that, it's all about, obviously taking your time. If you're going for a role that, you've got relevant experiences for, you can do revision if it's an accountancy job or something like that. But where it's one of these scenario-based tests where they're going to get you to do something that's going to be related to your role, I think you need to take your time. And I think you need to not be afraid to ask questions during it, clarify what you've got to put down. Don't feel, that you've got to, shut yourself away and do it all on your own, because asking questions and acting on that feedback in what you're doing will help. Take your time, and relate previous experiences where you can. So, if the test says, how would you deal with X, Y, or Z in your role? Say in your answer, I would deal with X, Y, and Z by this. In my previous role, we did this, which was very similar, and I had to use these skills. It will really help. If you can back up your answers, it will really, really help.
Yeah. We mentioned before about, when we're doing our research and that kind of thing, there's some great questions that we can ask to make it kind of a two-way conversation. Sometimes, I think we've all been in interviews where the person on the other side of the desk sort of springs some challenging questions on us, whether they're just dropped in there at the end to kind of see your response, that kind of thing. From what you mentioned before, I'm guessing your tips are going to be just to have honesty and kind of around that thing. And, if you're not sure, answer in an honest way.
Yeah. And take your time to formulate the answer. Say, oh, it's a good question. Can I just have a few seconds to think about it? Or if it's a difficult one, can we come back to this question? I have heard of interviewers throwing complete curveball questions, like what's your favorite color, sort of thing, really bizarrely. Or even, if you're a football team, which football team would you be? Just to see how you think and put you on the spot. And I would not be afraid by those things. No. They're just trying to see a bit of personality from you. So if they do ask you something that is completely left field, buy yourself a bit of time. That's a really good question. Can I just have a few moments to think about that? What football team would I be? Okay, yeah, I've got an answer. Buy yourself some time, or ask to come back to it. Really good question. I'd like to think about that one a bit more. Do you mind if I ask if we come back to that question? There's no harm in asking for that. There's always going to be the standard challenging ones. Just tell me about yourself. That's always an open question that can be quite hard, to kind of piece together on the spot. But definitely go for honesty where you can. Don't rush into an answer. Don't try and just blag it for the sake of it. Take your time and formulate the right response. It will show you're a little bit more measured and you're thinking about it and you're relating previous experiences to your answers.
And I'm guessing just be yourself with that respect as well, because maybe if you project something in an interview and you're successful and you get the job, you've got to carry that on.
Exactly. And that goes on so much to the point of making sure the role's right for you, because if you're being honest and you've approached it in this way and you're not offered the position, then it's probably not going to be right for you anyway. And that's take that away and be positive about that.
And there's no harm in that, especially if you're going for the first interview that you've had for forever. We need to go through these procedures and these experiences to get to where we are. And if it isn't, like you say, it's just not for you, and you just got to get yourself up and move on to the next one.
I mean, there's one example I can think of in my previous interview history where I went for a role I really, really wanted, and I always used to say, I was going for sales roles when I was first starting out, and every first question people would say to prepare for is, are you money motivated? You have to say you're money motivated. Well, I've never been motivated by money. I'm motivated by success and helping others. So I was looking for a role where I could sell and I could help others, and this role ticked both boxes. And I said, they asked me, you money motivated? And I said, I'm not, but I am motivated by success and by helping people. And I didn't get the job. They came back and hired me. After the other person then turned it down a few weeks later, I took the job and I moved up in the ranks. I won national awards with them. I was, they said I transformed the company, and they nearly didn't take me on because of that one question.
Yeah.
Was their reason for not doing that. And I was honest, and they still came back and gave me the job. And my thoughts are on that again is it might not have been right if that was really what they wanted, and they'd got that spot on. Then I wouldn't have been right for that role if it was just purely someone who was money motivated, because it wouldn't have ticked that box for me. I wouldn't have got that help in others because they would have always been thinking about the money thing. So, I really do think you've got to, you've got to be honest. I don't think there's any point in trying to swerve or curve or just, trying to just nail the question just for the sake of it, to impress them.
Yeah.
Be honest where you can. So.
And kind of after we've left the interview and, how long should we expect? I'm guessing for different companies, they would usually say we'll be in touch within X amount of days or that kind of a gap thing. But I'm guessing that if we haven't heard, we can always sort of go back proactively and ask ourselves.
Yeah, so I mean, I always encourage a follow up. If you haven't heard, it shows you're keen. You feel bad. You feel like, oh, look, I know I'm waiting. But I do think it's worth doing. If a company haven't given you a set date, they will say to you normally in an interview, oh, you'll hear by X. If they don't, it's a great question to ask. When will I hear? It's absolutely fine to ask.
Yeah.
So you should then be able to follow it up after that date. If you haven't asked and there is no deadline, I don't think there's any harm in following up the following week. If you interviewed on the Friday, don't call on the Monday. You haven't given them enough time. But by the sort of Wednesday or the Thursday of the following week, I think, the following week is a realistic time to be following up. It shows you're keen. It shows you haven't forgot about it. By that time, they should be able to give you a little bit more feedback, even if it is we're still thinking it through. There's a couple of candidates we're considering at the moment.
Yeah.
It'll give you some more, you'll know where you stand.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, if we are unsuccessful, it's a great opportunity for the next time to get feedback from the employer as well.
100%. Feedback is so important, and a lot of companies won't give much these days. And I understand why. It's from their side of things, there's every reason to not. But where you can get feedback, asking for it, there's no harm in asking for it, but asking for it for the right reasons. Some people will feel bitter after not being successful for an interview and will want to know why I was surely the best person for the role. And it's trying to avoid that situation. Asking for feedback for your own personal development is well worth it and understandable from an employer perspective. Was there anything I could have done better? Was it my interview performance or was it my background? Look, the person we've gone for had X and we really wanted that. Okay, I completely understand. But how did I do? We really liked you as a person. This was what we felt was really strong. If we were to give you any reason for improvement, it was this. You could use that in your next, interview preparation when you're preparing for your next one.
Yeah, I guess it's just allowing you to get value still out of that experience without getting the job, isn't it? Because then you can then go on to with new insights around yourself and
done in the right way. It shows you care. It shows that that you thought, oh, I'm genuinely gutted. What could I have done to give a better impression, or how could I improve on my next interview? And if you're not fussed by the opportunity and you were, it wasn't for you, then there isn't really a reason to ask, because it wasn't right for you anyway, and that was probably the reason why you didn't get it, because it probably came across. But if it was a role you were genuinely interested in and you are gutted to hear, but you do want to improve on it because you did feel you gave it everything, then ask, how could I have done better? What would have been the right things for me, for me to have said? And it may well just come down to a competency-based question. In which case, you can be rest assured that you did everything you could.
Yeah. From your experience of kind of working with clients and that kind of thing, are there any sort of specific things that you sort of, I guess, common mistakes that you see people make along the whole process that you wish you could just kind of tell people, you need to be mindful of this stuff? Is there anything that kind of stands out?
I think, a lot of people will approach an interview as if they know everything And I think
Okay.
that goes back to the blagging it situation. So they may come across that way, but they may not, because they've blagged it. And I think you've got to go in a little bit humble, a little bit open-minded, because a company will also feel, very confident in how they approach things. So I think, that is one thing that we do come across. And a lot of it can be down to personality fit. You
Yeah.
can have all the right experience, but the culture side of things, and therefore looking at all of those things in how you come across, it goes back to preparation.
Yeah.
If you prepare, if you understand what the company culture's like, or if you understand what the company, what your training needs are going to be, so you can answer those questions better, understand what you know and what you don't know, so you can answer those questions appropriately, it's going to really help. And then, as I say, it all comes down back to that preparation.
Yeah.
It really does. Preparing for an interview in the right way. We do lots of video blogs on the preparation stuff that people can see,
Yeah.
1 minute long on several of them, and it can really help to get the interview. Simply by preparing the right questions to ask at
Yeah.
the end, for example.
Yeah.
Interviews can be won or lost on that. So.
And talking about, you mentioned those resources there. If someone was kind of thinking that, they need a little bit of help with, and maybe they wanted to work with a company like yours, what should they really be looking for when looking for kind of a good kind of company to work alongside?
So a lot of people will just look for a company that have got lots of job opportunities,
Yeah.
because they think, right, they're the one, they've got lots of opportunities. That's all well and good. That's great. But if you want someone that is going to be someone to help you, you need to know that they understand what you're looking for and they're genuinely listening to you. They may also challenge you. They may say, you said you're looking for this, but on your CV, it doesn't say anything like that. How can you show me that? You want to know they're listening to you, understanding you, and challenging you to make sure that the opportunity is going to be right for you. If you're going to a company to help you in this, and it's a quick 5-minute process, you're in, you're done, you're sorted, and they're just chucking your CV out, your CV could be going to places you don't even know about. And that's, it shouldn't be, but it does happen. And so you want to know that you're going for someone who's genuinely got your best interests at heart and listens to and understands what you're looking for. And then obviously, feeds back on
Yeah,
that.
I think that's a really great point. I think it's not helping anyone if they're just machine gunning your CV to anyone and everyone, is it?
Yeah,
So what's the kind of process that you would sort of take someone through? I guess you have initial consultation first. Is that how it kind of works? And
yeah, so I mean, for us, it depends on the circumstance. We do video, we do face-to-face, we do phone call registrations, and it really does depend on the job role, the people as well, because it's difficult. We're open majority office hours. We will meet people outside if we need to, but people are busy in their lives. They find it difficult to make a venture into the office. So we will work around how people want to do things. But for us, it's about first of all getting the basic info down. Is you have to do that. But for us, it's then about really understanding what someone's looking for. And finding out, not just what job they want to be doing, but actually finding out what sort of company do they want to work for, what sort of culture do they thrive in, what sort of people do they want to be working around. And so once we've done our initial call or meeting or video with them, we send them a form that has questions about what what hours they want to do, what salary they want to earn, what duties they want to be doing. But then it asks them things like their strengths and their weaknesses, their 3 key proudest achievements, what sort of values of a business they want to work for, something that makes them unique. I mean, we had a candidate that had been on Grange Hill when they were little that was in there. We had a chap that was the first on the ground when the tsunami hit. He was the project manager in the whole situation, which you would have never known about these people from their CV. So we like to understand who the person is, and that form isn't just for us. That goes to the client with their CV to show the client who this person is, not just what experiences they've done, but who they are as a person. And our clients and our candidates really like that form because it gives a personal touch. We've had people hired off the back of that form that wouldn't have even been seen without it. We've had people turned down because they're looking for this money and that's not what we can offer, or they want to work these hours, we can't offer. So it really helps to make sure that the process is actually got its best opportunity to work.
Yeah.
And once we get that back, we then communicate with regards to what opportunities, or if it's one specifically they're looking for, put an application forward for them. But we like to really vouch for people. We like to be sort of old school recruitment, almost turning up with a briefcase and saying, this is the person who we've got, because, we really want to believe in that person, and understand them, and know that it's not just the right job, but the right culture and the right, people around them that it's going to be. So that's kind of how we do things.
Yeah, it's funny when I speak to people in all different sectors and all kind of roles on the podcast, and one thing that always stands out is that the people that are doing really well are the people that care about the people that they're working with,
Yeah.
and that they want to give them that whole kind of end-to-end experience. Something that
Yeah.
always sticks out, and I think from your point of view, that's kind of echoes so much of this stuff. And because you want to get the people that are going to represent both your company really well, and vice versa. And it's I think it's so heartwarming from their point of view as well, that they know you've got your best intentions. So like you say, given feedback when maybe they thought they wanted to go in one direction, but maybe they haven't got the skill sets, whatever. Right, you haven't got the skill sets. Well, what do we need to do to get that? And for a lot of people, similar to the kids that you're going to in the schools, they haven't got that kind of sounding board, I guess, for a lot of this stuff. With a lot of these things, we're sort of going about our day to day thinking, well, we're doing. I think I'm doing the right thing. But until we can work with a professional in that way, that kind of understands the industry and how to get the best out of people, it's what people need. So I think the podcast is called Make Today Count, and the reason around this was that in the past, what I want people to do is to listen to these conversations, invite people into conversations about things that they haven't maybe thought about before, introduce them to new ways of thinking. And what I'd really love is for if someone was maybe trying to look for a new job or move into a new position, what would be that kind of one tip that they could take away tomorrow to really just start the ball rolling with some of this stuff?
I think it's not just around, ask your friends as well. Find out, people you've got close to you. You being realistic is the, yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's putting time aside, actually, Ross. To be honest,
Yeah.
Setting some time aside and not just doing it on your own. Asking people what their thoughts are, because sometimes we could be frustrated in a job and just go home at the end of a bad day and think, right, let's find another job. But if you're asking people around you, they know you, they know whether this is realistic, and if it is realistic and you are really looking for a change, put time aside. Get your CV updated, and if you need support or you need help, there are lots of companies, recruiters out there, or that will offer you support and guidance. As I say, I mean, our YouTube channel has got daily stuff that can help you to go find the right job yourself.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was going to move on to, actually. Obviously you're servicing all your lovely clients and that kind of thing, but there's all these other ways that you're helping people via the use of YouTube and everything. Do you want to just have a quick chat about that? So are these kind of videos that people can kind of look at any time for different things, for different kind of subsections of stuff?
So we've got different playlists. We've got one which is about CV writing. So it's lots of different videos that will help you to write a personal profile, to help you put personality in your CV, to make sure you've got the right keywords. There's one on interviews. There's one on just applying for jobs and knowing where to look. And then there's other ones of our talks that we go out and give. But they're all 1 minute snippet videos that you can literally just look at and pick and choose, what you need. There's some that are more role specific as well. But just to give something back, and equally, if people want support on something, we'd happily put something together for them to add to that. So yeah.
And speaking of that, how's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Is it via social media or from the website?
Whatever works best for them. They can get in touch. We've got our company page on LinkedIn, my personal page on there if they need to. We've got Facebook, Twitter, we're on all of them. Our website's got all our contact information, so they can feel free to email us or apply for an advert that they've seen on us on a job board. We like to make it easy for people to access us. But yeah, just get in touch if you're thinking about it, and we'll see what we can do, basically.
Yeah. Well, Gerard, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an amazing conversation. I know people that are in this position themselves will take away so much from what you've shared today.
Yeah.
I always like to leave the conversation with some gratitude, and just to say sort of thank you for what you're doing. From going into schools and sort of nurturing people at that level, I think is some amazing stuff that you're doing. And also just to, I guess, being an open, proactive company. I think that's some of the kind of feeling I've got from your interactions on LinkedIn and those sort of things, that you're going out of your way to proactively help people with the videos and all this kind of stuff, where a lot of people aren't. And I think, at the end of the day, that's helping people get more out of their sort of job seeking experience, and just allowing them to get some of this different sort of skills that they're not getting elsewhere. So thanks for that, mate. I think
That's cool. All much appreciated.
No, you're welcome. Guys, if you've enjoyed this conversation, what I'd love you to do is to reach out to us, either to Gerard or directly to myself. You can find all the information over the show notes page, which you'll find over on the website. Equally, if you've liked the conversation here, or maybe you know of someone that's currently looking for work or a new role, please share this conversation with them. You can find us on all of the podcasting apps, from Spotify to Apple iTunes to Google Podcasts. So please get in touch. And also, if you're not yet a subscriber, please do that as well. But until next time, I've been Ross Dean. This has been Make Today Count, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.